My name is Jessica Martinez. I'm 38 years old, and I work as a software engineer in Austin, Texas. The story I'm sharing took place at the end of March this year, when my daughter was about to attend what we both believed was the biggest event of her life. Maya is 13 years old. She's my only child, my whole world. She has big, round, brown eyes, just like her father, who left us when she was 10, and a curious, unstoppable energy that fills every room she walks into. For the past 2 years, Maya has been working on a solar energy project for rural schools. I watch my daughter, this little girl with messy hair and oversized hoodies, stay up late night after night, drawing diagrams, testing models, and calculating numbers I had to secretly Google just to keep up. There were nights when I came home from debugging code at work, exhausted, and I'd see the light coming from under her bedroom door. I'd push it open gently and find her hunched over her laptop, fingers flying across the keys, surrounded by physics textbooks and small handmade solar panels scattered all over the carpet. The first time I saw her buy a thick physics book with her own allowance instead of a new game or clothes, I knew this wasn't just some school assignment. This was her passion. She wasn't just reading theory. She was out in our tiny garage, piecing together small solar panel prototypes with her own hands, burning her fingers with the glue gun, scowling when something didn't work, then trying again. I remember watching her one evening, a screwdriver in her hand, tongue poking out in concentration. For a moment, I forgot how tired I was. I just thought, this child of mine, she's building something bigger than both of us. Then, at the end of February, it happened. I was answering emails in my bedroom when Maya practically kicked the door open. Her eyes were shining, her voice shaking as she waved an official-looking envelope in the air. Mom, I got chosen. I got invited to the statewide Outstanding Student Celebration. For a second, my brain froze. Then my heart started pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. In all of Texas, only 50 students were chosen from thousands of projects. 50. And my daughter, a kid from a regular neighborhood with a regular single mom who still used coupons and worried about rent, had made it. Maya was going to present her project and meet the state governor. She threw herself into my arms, squeezing me so tight I could barely breathe. Her voice trembled next to my ear. Mom, I can't believe this is real. I hugged her even tighter. On paper, I'm just a woman with a stable but ordinary job, nothing fancy. We don't have a big house or a luxury car. I'm not the kind of parent people point to and say, of course her kid did something amazing. But my daughter, she had done something far beyond anything I ever dreamed for her, and that thought almost brought me to tears. From the moment she got the news, Maya became obsessed with every tiny detail of that event. The project slides, the way she would stand, and especially the dress. She had been saving up for months from birthdays and odd chores to buy a navy blue dress she'd fallen in love with. Simple but elegant. When she finally brought it home, she treated it like it was made of glass. For 2 whole months, I'd catch her quietly opening the closet just to look at it. She'd run her fingers gently over the fabric and smile to herself like she was imagining the future. Every week, she would ask me the same question in a half-teasing, half-serious tone. Mom, do you think I can impress the governor? Every time I'd laugh and answer, you're not just going to impress the governor, Maya. You're going to make everyone else wish they had a daughter like you. What I didn't say out loud was that her success scared me a little. I grew up in a family where success was always compared, always measured against someone else, especially between me and my younger sister, Carmen. And Carmen is still very much that person. To save about $200 on hotel costs, I made what I thought was a smart, practical choice. Instead of booking a hotel near the event, I decided we'd drive back to my parents' house in Riverside and stay there. Their place is only 10 minutes from the venue. Why waste money on a hotel? I told Maya. We'll get home-cooked food and Grandma's hugs for free. On paper, it was perfect. In reality, that decision became the first domino that would ruin the night my daughter had waited 2 years for. I knew my sister Carmen and her 14-year-old daughter Isabella were temporarily staying with my parents after Carmen's divorce 3 months earlier. Carmen and we've never really gotten along, even as kids. We were those sisters who could turn anything into an argument. Grades, attention, clothes. But I told myself we were adults now. We'd both grown. Surely, for something as important as Maya's celebration, we would all be on our best behavior. I was wrong. Around 7 p.m. on Saturday, after more than 2.5 hours of driving, we pulled into my parents' driveway. As soon as I opened the car door, I smelled Mom's apple pie drifting through the cool night air. For a split second, it felt like I was 15 again, coming home from school. But the moment we stepped inside, I sensed it, that thin, almost invisible layer of tension in the air. The smiles were there, but something underneath felt tight. Mom, Carol, rushed to the door with a radiant smile, arms open wide. She pulled Maya into a hug and stroked her hair, practically glowing with pride. "My smart girl," she said, pulling back to look Maya up and down. "I'm so proud of you. You're just like your mom when she was little, always surprising us." Dad, James, came out from the hallway with a warm grin. He opened his arms to Maya, patting her shoulder. "Are you ready for the big day?" he asked. "I can't wait to hear what the governor says when he sees your project." Maya's smile was huge. She carefully set the dress bag down beside her like it was priceless. "Grandpa, I've prepared everything. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow," she said, her voice full of quiet pride. And then, like a cloud passing over the sun, Carmen appeared in the doorway of the living room. Her expression was hard to read, not exactly unfriendly, but not warm either. She stood there with her arms crossed, watching the scene from a distance before giving me a small, casual nod. "Hey, Jess," she said. "Maya's gotten so tall." Her tone was flat. No congratulations. No, "I'm happy for you." Just an observation, like she was commenting on the weather. My stomach tightened a little, but I smiled anyway. Yeah, she has. A moment later, Isabella came down the stairs. 14, slightly taller than Maya, striking features, perfect hair. The kind of teenager who always seems aware of how she looks in every reflection. She glanced at Maya, then her gaze dropped to the dress bag on the floor. "What did you bring?" Isabella asked, her tone casual, but her eyes sharp. "Looks important." Maya, being Maya, answered honestly, her voice polite. "This is the dress I'll wear when I meet the state governor," she said. "I got invited to the statewide Outstanding Student Celebration." Isabella nodded like she'd just heard someone mention a math test. "Oh, cool." But I saw it. That flash in her eyes. The slight pause. The way she looked Maya up and down as if she was measuring herself against my daughter and not liking the result. Throughout dinner, the tension didn't fade. It grew. Carmen kept throwing in little comments here and there, always circling back to comparison. She'd look at Maya, then at Isabella, and I could almost hear the calculation in her head. In the middle of Mama and Dad asking Maya about her project, Carmen suddenly cut in with a forced laugh. "Why is everyone only talking about Maya?" she said. "Isabella's talented too, you know, but nobody seems to care." The room went quiet for a second. I reached out and gently touched Carmen's shoulder, trying to keep my voice calm. "Carmen, Isabella is very talented," I said. "You know that. But tonight we're just celebrating Maya a little, okay? They're both special. There's no need to compare." She looked straight at me, eyes flashing. "Actually," she said, bitterness dripping from every word, "Isabella studies science too. She just wasn't lucky enough to get chosen." Lucky. The word hit me like a slap. I saw Maya lower her eyes to her plate, her fingers tightening around her fork. All those nights, all those experiments, all that determination, reduced to luck. Maya leaned closer to me a little later, when the adults had moved on to small talk. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "Mom," she asked, "did I do something wrong? Why does Aunt Carmen keep talking like that?" I looked at her, my child who still believed that adults were logical and fair, and felt my heart ache. "No, sweetie," I said softly. "You didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes when something amazing happens, it makes other people feel weird about themselves. That's not your fault." But inside, my worry was growing roots. I could feel the jealousy in the room, thick and poisonous, searching for a way to spill over. Later that night, when I tucked Maya into bed in my old childhood room, she was quieter than usual. I sat down beside her, smoothing her hair back from her forehead. "Mom," she asked softly, "tomorrow's going to be okay, right?" I forced a smile. "Tomorrow is going to be incredible," I told her. "You're going to walk in there in your beautiful dress, show the governor your project, and remind everyone why you deserve that invitation." I kissed her forehead and stood up. Before turning off the light, my eyes landed on the navy dress, hanging next to the closet. The street light outside made the fabric gleam faintly. For a brief second, my chest tightened. Something about the way it hung there, so exposed, so unprotected, made me uneasy. But I shook it off. It was just a dress. It was safe in my parents' house. I turned off the light, closed the door, and told myself everything would be fine. Sunday morning started out so ordinary, it almost feels insulting when I think back on it now. Around 7 a.m., I sat alone in the kitchen with a mug of coffee between my hands, listening to the faint ticking of the old clock on the wall. Mom and Dad had already gone out for their morning walk, like they always did on weekends. The house felt peaceful, washed in pale sunlight. For a few minutes, I let myself breathe. I imagined Maya waking up, taking her time to get ready, slipping into her navy dress, smiling at her reflection. I pictured her walking onto that stage, confident and radiant. For those few minutes, I believed we'd made it through the worst of the tension. Then the screaming started. A piercing shriek ripped through the quiet, followed by something heavy crashing against the floor upstairs. My body reacted before my mind did. My fingers went numb, and the coffee cup slipped from my hand, clattering onto the table, liquid sloshing over the rim. The second scream was louder, layered with sobbing and the dull thud of something hitting the wall. "Maya!" I shouted, my heart jumping into my throat. I didn't even remember leaving the chair. I just remember my feet pounding up the stairs, 3 at a time, my pulse roaring in my ears. The closer I got, the clearer it became. 2 voices overlapping, crying, yelling, accusing. When I reached the doorway of the bedroom, I froze. Maya and Isabella were on the floor, tangled together, hair flying, fists gripping sleeves and hair, faces red and wet with tears. Papers, books, and a broken lamp lay scattered around them like debris from an explosion. But my eyes went straight to the thing that made the breath catch in my chest. Isabella was wearing Maya's navy dress, or what was left of it. The skirt was ripped in long, jagged tears. Red stains, wine, my brain registered mechanically, bloomed across the fabric like wounds. The delicate dress that had hung so carefully the night before was now a shredded, stained mess stretched over my niece's body. Maya was sobbing, her small hands grabbing at Isabella's sleeves, her voice raw with panic. "Take it off! Take off my dress! You ruined my dress!" Isabella was crying too, but not with remorse. Her face was twisted with anger and indignation as she tried to push Maya away. "I didn't mean to. I was just borrowing it. Why are you hitting me?" My heart hammered against my ribs. For a second, I stood there, stunned, the scene swirling in front of me like something out of a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Then Maya's voice broke again, higher, shakier, almost animal. "You destroyed the most important day of my life. You know I'm meeting the governor today." I had never heard my daughter sound like that, not even when her father left. It wasn't just anger, it was despair. Isabella, still in the ruined dress, pulled at Maya's hair and screamed back, voice sharp and dismissive. "It's just a dress. You're making too big a deal out of it. I'll buy you a new one." It wasn't just a dress, I thought, feeling heat rush up my neck. It was her dream. The 2 girls rolled against the floor, pulling, shoving, scratching. I saw tears running down Maya's cheeks, mixing with strands of hair stuck to her face. Isabella's eyes were blazing, not with guilt, but with challenge. Maya clawed at the dress, trying to yank it off Isabella, and the fabric tore even more with a horrible ripping sound. "My dress," she sobbed. "My dress is ruined. What am I going to wear? What am I going to wear?" Isabella lost her balance, stumbled, and hit her head on the leg of the desk. She cried out, clutching her head. For a second, Maya froze, guilt flickering in her eyes. But Isabella's expression hardened again. "I didn't mean to ruin anything," Isabella shouted. "You're crazy. You hit me first." That was enough. I snapped out of my daze and lunged forward, grabbing Maya around the shoulders, trying to pull her back. In her panic, she fought my grip, her nails scratching my forearms. "Stop! Both of you, stop!" I shouted, my voice shaking. "Maya, enough!" Just as I managed to drag Maya away, heavy footsteps thundered up the stairs. Carmen appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. But instead of asking what happened, she went straight to Isabella and pulled her into her arms, shielding her with her body like we were dangerous. "Oh my God, Isabella," she cried. "What did they do to you?" I could barely believe my ears. "Carmen," I started, still holding Maya, who trembled in my arms. Carmen's eyes snapped to me, blazing. "Jessica, your daughter hit Isabella first," she shouted. "Look at her. She's bleeding. Why aren't you stopping Maya instead of attacking my child?" I stared at her, stunned. Isabella was clutching her head, tears streaming down her face, the torn dress hanging off her like a costume ripped after a show. I glanced at Maya. Her hair was a mess, her face streaked with tears, a few minor scratches on her hands and arms. But it wasn't the scratches that broke me, it was her eyes. They were full of something I'd never seen there before, absolute betrayal. I gently turned Maya to face me, holding her by the shoulders. Maya, I said, trying to steady my voice, tell me what happened. Slowly. She sniffed, wiping her face with the back of her hand, trying to speak through her sobs. I woke up and my dress wasn't where I left it, she choked out. I looked everywhere, and then I found Isabella sleeping in the next room, wearing it. Just hearing those words made my stomach twist. I told her to take it off, Maya continued, her voice rising. I said she had no right to wear it, but she said... Maya's hands curled into fists, anger returning to her features. She said the dress was hers now, that whoever wears it first owns it. She said it was hers. I turned to Isabella, my jaw tightening. Is that true? I asked, my voice low. Did you say that? Isabella lifted her chin and met my eyes without flinching. I already wore it, she said. So it's mine now. That's just how it works. Her tone wasn't apologetic, it was defiant. I couldn't even find words for a moment. Before I could respond, Carmen stepped in front of Isabella like a shield. Jessica, don't talk to my daughter like she's some thief, Carmen snapped. They're kids. They fight. Maya hit her. That's the real problem here. I stared at my sister, disbelief turning into something colder. Carmen, I said slowly, your daughter took Maya's dress without asking. She knew this was for Maya's event. She wore it out and ruined it. And you think the problem is that my child is upset? Carmen scoffed, eyes narrowing. It's just a dress, she said. Maya is being dramatic. Isabella said she didn't mean it. You're the one turning this into a war. You've spoiled Maya so much she doesn't know how to share. Behind her, Isabella's expression twisted into a small, smug smile. Maya's whole body tensed in my arms. That's not true, she yelled through tears. You're lying. Isabella didn't apologize. She just said I didn't deserve it. Isabella's head snapped toward her cousin. Because you don't, she spat. You're ugly and short. A dress this pretty would look awful on you. The words sliced through the air and hit Maya like a blade. I felt her flinch physically, as if she'd been slapped. My vision blurred for a second with rage. I pulled Maya back tighter to stop her from lunging forward again. Enough, I said sharply. Isabella, that's enough. Carmen turned on me again, her voice rising. See, she shouted. This is what I mean. You always take Maya's side. You always treat her like some perfect little angel, while Isabella is the villain. Our whole lives it's been like this. You were the golden child. Now it's your daughter. Her words dragged up old ghosts I thought I'd buried years ago. Late-night arguments. Comparisons. The feeling of never being enough or being too much. But this time it wasn't just about me. It was about my child. I am taking the side of what's right, I said, my voice trembling but firm. Your daughter stole something important to mine, lied about it, and humiliated her. And you're calling that sharing? Before Carmen could answer, another voice cut through the chaos. A deep, stern voice I knew better than my own. What is going on up here? Dad's voice. I turned to see him standing at the top of the stairs, Mom just behind him. I didn't even hear them come in. Their morning walk must have ended right in the middle of our disaster. Dad's face was red with anger as he took in the sight. Isabella wearing the destroyed dress, Maya clinging to me, Carmen standing in front of her daughter like we were the enemy. Mom's eyes were already filling with tears. Dad stepped into the room, his jaw clenched. He pointed at the torn dress. Can someone explain to me, he said, each word sharp as a knife, what the hell is happening in my house? The room went silent, except for the sound of the girls' sniffles. Dad took a long, slow breath, then turned toward the hallway. Downstairs, he ordered. All of you. Living room. Now. We're going to settle this properly. And in that moment, I knew something had shifted. This wasn't just a childish fight anymore. This was about to become a reckoning for all of us. I had no idea that the nightmare had already begun. The living room felt colder than usual that morning. Maybe it was because every window was wide open to let in the sunlight, but all I felt was tension, thick, suffocating, almost metallic in the air. The kind of tension that warns you something irreversible is about to happen. Family photos lined the walls, smiling faces from vacations, birthdays, Christmas gatherings. Every memory, whispering, we used to be whole. But now, those same photos felt like reminders of a lie. Dad sat on the sofa, arms crossed tightly, jaw pulsing. Mom stood beside him, her fingers trembling as she twisted the edge of her sweater. Maya sat next to me, still shaking, eyes swollen from crying. Isabella slumped next to Carmen on the opposite side of the room, lips pressed into a pout, arms crossed like the victim in a drama she created. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Dad's voice cut through the silence like thunder. All right, I want the truth, he said. Every detail, now. I swallowed hard and began explaining everything from the moment I heard the scream. How I rushed up the stairs, how I found the girls fighting, how the dress was gone, how Isabella had been sleeping in it. I spoke slowly, carefully, giving Maya's version, then describing Isabella's reactions, the insults, the pushing. Dad's face grew a deeper shade of red with every word. By the time I finished, the veins on his hands were prominent from how tightly he was gripping the armrest. When I fell silent, he turned sharply to Carmen. Is this true? He demanded. Carmen's jaw tightened. She wrapped her arm around Isabella defensively, as if shielding her from bullets instead of the truth. Dad, she said with forced patience, kids fight. It's normal. Isabella just borrowed the dress, and... Borrowed, Mom's voice snapped unexpectedly. She stepped forward, her expression sharper than I'd seen in years. Carmen, did she ask? Did Maya say yes? Carmen opened her mouth, but couldn't produce anything coherent. Mom turned to Isabella. Her voice was soft, but carried an unmistakable edge, the kind that made your stomach drop even before the words landed. Isabella, she said, looking straight into her granddaughter's eyes, tell me exactly what happened. And I want the truth, not what you think your mother wants to hear. Isabella swallowed, her gaze darting between her mom and Grandma. She stiffened, almost as if ready to deny everything again. But Grandma's eyes didn't waver. 14 years of teenage defiance was no match for 70 years of maternal intuition. Finally, Isabella broke. Her expression crumbled, her shoulders sagged, and she burst into tears. I took it, she sobbed. I took Maya's dress while she was sleeping. The room went dead silent. Carmen's head whipped toward her daughter, eyes wide in shock. Isabella, she snapped, why would you... But Isabella cut her off, words tumbling out between sobs. I wanted to wear it, just for a little. I was going to give it back. Mom inhaled sharply. Then how did it get stained? Isabella looked down, her sobbing growing louder. I wore it to Sarah's birthday party. There were drinks. Someone spilled wine on me. I didn't mean to ruin it. Dad shot up from the sofa so fast the coffee table rattled. You went to a party with alcohol? His voice was so loud even I flinched. Carmen, where were you? Did you know your daughter was at a party like that? Carmen stammered, face pale. I thought she was studying with a friend. I didn't know she... Dad interrupted with a scoff of disbelief. You didn't know? You didn't check? Your daughter stole her cousin's dress, snuck out to a party, and you didn't even realize she wasn't at home. Carmen froze, guilt washing over her face. Maya shifted next to me, her voice quiet but trembling. I told the truth, she whispered, wiping her tears. I didn't lie. I said she ruined my dress. Mom knelt in front of her, gently brushing the hair from Maya's cheek. We know, sweetheart, she said softly. But when Mom turned back to Isabella, her expression became stern again. Isabella, she said, give the dress back. Isabella clutched the ruined dress tighter against her chest. No, she yelled. I already wore it. It looks better on me anyway. Maya wouldn't look good in it. She's too short. She's ugly. The dress would have looked awful on her. The air left my lungs. Even Dad's expression faltered from anger to pure disbelief. Mom stood frozen. For a moment, I honestly thought she might faint. Carmen stared at Isabella like she didn't recognize her own child. But just as quickly, she snapped back into defense. Mom, she didn't mean that, Carmen said weakly. She's upset. Maya hit her first. She's lashing out. She's a kid. A kid who just insulted her cousin's appearance, Mom interrupted sharply. A kid who stole, lied, snuck out, and ruined something precious. And you're still excusing her? Carmen opened her mouth again, but Dad suddenly stood and walked out to the porch, shaking his head. He couldn't watch anymore, but he didn't stop Mom either. Mom took one long breath, her face pale, her eyes glossy with heartbreak. And then, something shifted inside her. She straightened her spine, shoulders firming, voice trembling, not from fear, but from resolve. Carmen. My sister slowly looked up. Get Isabella, Mom said. Pack your things. Both of you. Carmen blinked rapidly, as if she hadn't heard correctly. Mom? Mom's jaw tightened. When she spoke again, her voice was cold, colder than I had ever heard in my life. I want you out of this house, now. I don't want to see either of you here again. Carmen's face went white. Isabella's sobs turned into panicked gasps. Mom, you can't be serious, Carmen cried. Where are we supposed to go? We don't have another place yet. You should have thought about that, Mom said, turning away. I will not have a child in my house who steals, lies, insults her cousin, and a mother who defends it every step of the way. Dad stood in the doorway, looking at Carmen with a mixture of sadness and disappointment, but said nothing. His silence was the confirmation of Mom's final decision. Carmen rushed toward him, grabbing his arm. Dad, stop her! She's kicking us out! Dad closed his eyes for a long moment. Then he whispered, Your mother already made up her mind. Carmen broke. She fell onto the couch, sobbing, holding Isabella close. Please, please, she's still young. I'll teach her, I promise. But Mom pointed toward the stairs without turning back. Get your things now, I'm done talking. Isabella looked terrified now, her arms wrapped around the ruined dress, like a lifeline she didn't want to let go. But it didn't matter anymore. They packed their bags between cries and pleading whispers. The house grew unbearably quiet as we listened to drawers opening, luggage zipping, hurried footsteps. When the front door closed and their car finally drove away, the sound echoed through the house like something breaking. Mom stood by the window, her hand pressed against the glass, watching the car disappear. Tears slid silently down her cheeks. She didn't turn, didn't speak, just whispered, almost too quiet to hear. Jessica, we need to fix this before tomorrow. Then she wiped her tears and walked toward the sewing room, a place none of us had entered in years. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't over, not by a long shot. Mom didn't say another word as she walked down the hallway toward the old sewing room, a small space at the back of the house that had been untouched for years. I followed her slowly, my heartbeat still shaky from everything that had happened. The door creaked open, and dust motes danced in the sunlight, streaking through the window. The room looked the same as it had when I was a child. Bolts of fabric stacked in the corner, jars filled with buttons and zippers, and in the center, sitting like an artifact of a forgotten era, stood her vintage sewing machine, the one she used throughout my childhood. Mom paused in front of it, brushing her fingertips along its metal frame. I never thought I'd touch this again, she whispered. Maya, who had followed behind me quietly, sniffled. Her eyes were still red from crying, her voice still small. Grandma, what are we doing? Mom turned to her, and for the first time since morning, her expression softened deeply, full of determination and love strong enough to anchor the whole room. We're going to make you a dress, she said. Not just any dress, one worthy of your moment tomorrow. Maya blinked, confused. We can do that. In one day? Mom gave her a tiny smile, the same smile she used to give me whenever she was about to do something miraculous. I've made gowns overnight for governors' wives, ambassadors' galas, even the mayor's daughter once, she said. One dress for my granddaughter? Yes, I can do it. Maya stared at her in awe. I blinked. Mom, you haven't sewn in years. She shrugged. Muscle memory, Jessica, and purpose. Purpose keeps the hands steady. She stepped back, rolled up the sleeves of her sweater, and looked at both of us. But first, she said, we need fabric. Even though everything in my body felt heavy, we all got into the car. Maya sat in the back seat, holding herself together, but I could feel how fragile she was, like one wrong word could shatter her completely. Mom drove with focus, her hands steady on the wheel, her eyes forward, like she was on a mission. As we pulled into the fabric store's parking lot, she took Maya's hand. Today isn't ruined, Mom told her softly. Your moment is not gone. Sometimes the universe gives you a test before giving you a triumph. Maya swallowed hard, nodding. Inside the store, colors and textures surrounded us. Rolls of fabric lined the walls in endless rows. Satin, chiffon, organza, velvet, silk. Maya quietly ran her fingers along each one until she stopped at a dark navy blue, deeper than her original dress, with a subtle shimmer when it caught the light. This one, she whispered. Mom touched the fabric, then nodded. Elegant, mature, strong. Then she glanced at Maya and added, just like you. Maya's lips trembled into the first real smile I'd seen from her all day. We bought the fabric, matching thread, flowing tulle, and a few delicate embellishments that Mom insisted would give the dress character. As we drove home, Maya held the bag in her lap like it was something sacred. Once home, Mom wasted no time. She moved with surprising energy, pulling out her measuring tape, dusting off the sewing machine, laying the fabric across the long table. Maya, she said, come here so I can take your measurements. Maya stepped forward shyly as Mom wrapped the measuring tape around her chest, waist, shoulders. Stand tall, Mom instructed. Own your presence. Maya straightened her back. I saw it, something healing in her posture, a seed of confidence sprouting again. Mom began cutting the fabric with long, precise movements. Every slice of the scissors was deliberate, every fold perfect. When the sewing machine came to life, its rhythmic hum filled the room like a heartbeat. Maya sat beside her grandmother, watching with wide eyes, absorbing every movement. After a while, Mom handed her a needle and thread. "Here," she said, "help me with the detailing. Hand stitches show care. Anyone can buy a dress. But stitches sewn with love? Those make a dress unforgettable." As they worked, I assisted where I could, holding fabric edges, pinning seams, pressing pieces flat with the iron. The three of us formed a quiet rhythm. And through it all, Mom began to talk. She told Maya about her past, how she used to sew for the governor's wife, how she once made gowns for charity balls, how she never felt more alive than when she created something beautiful with her hands. Maya listened, each story weaving itself into the threads of her new dress. "This dress," Mom said, guiding Maya's small fingers through a stitch, "is not just for tomorrow. It's to remind you that no matter what gets torn from you, you can always rebuild. And sometimes what you make afterward is even more beautiful." The room glowed with yellow light from the old lamp. Outside, the sky darkened, shifting into midnight. Still, we worked. And slowly, piece by piece, stitch by stitch, the dress came to life. By the time dawn light spilled through the window, the dress was finished. It was breathtaking. A deeper navy than the original, with soft tulle cascading behind, delicate beading that shimmered like starlight, and a silhouette that made Maya look like she wasn't just meeting a governor, she was stepping into her future. Maya slipped it on. Mom adjusted the waist, smoothing the fabric. I stood back, hand over my mouth, eyes burning. Maya turned to face us. The girl who stood there wasn't the one who had cried on the floor hours earlier. She was stronger, steadier, glowing. Mom nodded proudly. "Now that," she said, "is a dress worthy of the governor's attention." Maya ran into her arms, tears spilling again. But these tears were different. Softer, lighter, full of gratitude. And as the sun rose, painting the room gold, I realized something I hadn't expected. The dress Isabella destroyed had been beautiful, but the one Grandma created overnight? It was magic. And so was the love that built it. The moment we stepped into the Texas State Capitol auditorium the next morning, it felt like the world itself paused to look at Maya. Children, parents, educators, everyone turned their heads as she walked by. The navy dress shimmered softly under the light, each step sending ripples through the fabric. And Maya, she didn't shrink or hide or doubt herself. She stood tall, she smiled, she glowed. Like everything she had endured the day before had only made her shine brighter. I walked behind her, fighting the swell in my chest. Pride, relief, and something deeper, a kind of awe you feel only when you witness your child rise after being broken. People whispered as she passed. "Her dress is beautiful. Where did she get it? She looks stunning." But Maya didn't shrink from the attention. She answered each compliment with quiet confidence, a soft smile. "My grandma made it for me," she said every time. "She sewed it last night." Some people looked shocked, like they couldn't believe such a refined, elegant gown had been made overnight. A few even asked to touch the fabric, praising the craftsmanship. I could already imagine how proud Mom would be if she heard this. The presentation. When it was Maya's turn to present, I sat in the second row, hands clasped so tightly they were cold. But when she stepped onto the stage, something changed. It was as if the weight of yesterday no longer mattered. She spoke clearly, passionately, confidently, explaining her solar energy model, her prototype, her mission to bring affordable power to rural schools. Her voice didn't shake, her feet didn't shuffle. She wasn't that girl whose dress had been ripped apart just 24 hours ago. She was a young woman, standing in her brilliance. When she finished, the applause hit like a wave. I felt my throat tighten, my eyes sting. Then it happened. The governor himself stepped forward, shaking Maya's hand warmly. He looked down at her dress and said, smiling, "That is a remarkable story, that your grandmother sewed this overnight so you could be here." People around us murmured in surprise. Maya laughed softly and nodded. "Yes, sir. She stayed up all night with my mom and me." The governor nodded thoughtfully. "That, young lady, is the kind of family and perseverance that builds great futures. You should be very proud." And then, as if the universe wanted to wrap this full circle, he said publicly, loud enough for the auditorium to hear, "Your project is outstanding, but hearing what your family overcame to get you here, that is equally impressive." I pressed my hand to my mouth, trying not to cry in front of everyone. When Maya received her certificate and scholarship award, she turned toward the crowd and found me. Our eyes met. There are moments in life when love doesn't need words. This was one of them. The goodbye that hurt and healed. After the event, we drove back to my parents' house to pack our things. Mom was waiting at the door. She gasped softly when she saw Maya in the dress. No tears, no pity, just pure pride. "You look incredible," she whispered. Maya ran into her arms, hugging her tightly. Dad came out next, putting a warm, steady hand on Maya's shoulder. "We're proud of you," he said, voice thick. We didn't talk about Carmen. Not yet. Not with the air still too tender to touch. But when we loaded our things into the car and prepared to leave, Mom pulled me close. "You protected Maya," she said softly, "and that's what mattered." Dad wrapped an arm around us both. "Your sister will learn. The world has a way of teaching when parents fail to." I drove back to Austin feeling simultaneously lighter and heavier. Light because Maya was okay. Heavy because family wounds don't close easily. Months later, the wound that didn't die. 6 months passed. Maya grew stronger, more assertive, more resilient. The incident didn't crush her, it shaped her. But for me, sometimes lying in bed at night, doubt crept in. I wondered if I had done the right thing, if I had pushed my sister too far, if I had allowed a rift that would never heal. I thought about Isabella too, a girl raised without boundaries, without enough love, without enough guidance. Dad called one evening and told me Carmen had come home recently, crying, begging them for forgiveness. Life had been hard since she moved out. Money was tight. Isabella's behavior had spiraled, and Carmen was unraveling. Dad's voice softened. "Your mother forgave her. She always does." 3 months ago, an envelope arrived in our mailbox. Thin, white, neat handwriting on the front. Maya's name. She froze when she saw it. Her hands trembled as she opened it. She read it in silence. Her eyes filled with tears. Her lips quivered. She read it again and again. Then she handed it to me. It was from Isabella, apologizing, admitting what she did, saying she was ashamed, saying she wanted to be better, saying she missed Maya. Maya whispered, "I don't know if I can forgive her, but I want to try." I hugged her tightly. "That's enough," I said. "Trying is enough." I closed my eyes, feeling something small and painful shift inside me. The dress Grandma made, the midnight navy, hand-stitched with tears and love, now hangs in Maya's closet inside a garment bag. Every time she opens the door and sees it, she touches it gently, not out of sadness, but gratitude, strength, memory. She told me once, "When I'm older, I want to tell my kids this story, so they know that even when something important gets ruined, love can fix it." And I knew in that moment that the dress had become more than fabric. It was a symbol, a reminder, a legacy. Now, as I sit here sharing this with you, I'm still torn. I protected my daughter. I defended what was right. But family is complicated, messy, painful, and sometimes worth fighting for, even when it hurts. So I want to ask you, truly, what would you do? Did I make the right decision standing my ground? And if Isabella is genuinely remorseful, should we open our hearts and forgive? Thank you for listening to our story. If it touched you, don't forget to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next story.